All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 182 News Podcast. This is your host, Poppin' Curbs. Appreciate you tuning in to another episode. I hope you enjoyed the last episode that featured my interview with Matt Schneff, a graphic designer who's done a ton of rad work with Hi, My Name is Mark. I thought it was really cool to get his story and his creative process and talk about how he got involved with Hi, My Name is Mark. He was so proud of his work for them, especially the skateboard. He did the Tony Hawk inspired skateboard with Dylan and Himnim, and he was so stoked and proud of that design that he got it tattooed, which is insane. I shared a photo of that on the 182 News Pod Instagram, and Tony Hawk, the man himself, liked the photo. You can go check it. Pretty dope. Hope you enjoyed that. Speaking of Himnim, if you're tuning in live on YouTube, the hat I'm rocking right now is called the hashtag Poppin' Pink. The Hi, My Name is Mark Discord, Mark's Discord. There's a channel on there specifically for Himnim, and a while back they asked, if anybody had any ideas on hat colors and color combos. And I've always wanted this hat, and so I mocked it up along with 3 or 4 others, and I posted a picture of it. And all of a sudden, the hat just comes to life. About a month ago, it's really rad. They were calling it the Discord hat, and it's already sold out, but it's dope. So I hope you guys caught that. Hope you got to rock it. Another thing I wanted to talk about is I think I mentioned on a previous episode that a listener at Wellesley182 was rad enough to reach out to me, thanked me for doing the pod, which I always just love hearing from you all. It still blows my mind that anybody even pays attention to the pod, much less looks forward to it and reaches out to say how much they enjoyed it. And he wanted to send me beer all the way from England, which is insane. And he mailed them to me. They made it all the way here. He gave me 2 of them. They were from Phantom Brewing Co., which is, I guess, a brewery out of Reading, which is pretty rad. One of them is called Feeling This, and the artwork on the can is inspired by that. And the other one is called Online Songs, and obviously has a Take Off Your Pants and Jacket theme, which is pretty dope. And I posted a picture of them on the pod Instagram page, and the picture just kept getting likes, and it just kept getting likes. And I think I said something on there like, to drink or not to drink. And I was on the fence about it. I thought about it. I was thinking about doing it. But it's like, is this a collectible? Should I smash it? Who knows? And ultimately, the post got so popular, it just kept getting so many likes that I decided to leave it up to the people. And so I put a poll up in my Instagram, and 58% of people said to drink it. So I said, okay, I want to drink it, but I want to drink it with you all, or somehow do this live, or somehow, get you all involved. Now, one thing I decided to do a couple weeks ago is I launched my own Twitch channel. So it's twitch.tv/poppincurbs. And I love gaming. I've been gaming for a long time. And I thought that would be a cool way to kind of get people to tune in live and hang out and hopefully talk about the pod, all that good stuff. And so I decided one night, a couple Fridays ago, that I would stream some Mario Golf, get some viewers in, get friends in, whoever wanted to play, and I would drink the beer. So I promoted it. Several of you popped in, said what up. Really appreciate that. The beer was solid. It was good. And in fact, last Friday, I did the Feeling This beer live on Twitch, along with playing Mario Golf with all of you. And it was just such a pleasure. So again, thank you at Wellesley182 for the beer. This is great. Maybe people can just send me beer from all over the world, and I'll just play video games and drink it on random Friday nights. I know a lot of you, throughout the year and a half or so that the pod's been going, a lot of folks have asked me how they can support the pod. And I've thought about it. I could do commercials. I could do stupid shit at the beginning where I talk to you about Anchor or whatever, and I just don't want to do it. This isn't something I'm doing for money or for a living. And, while I appreciate you all asking how you can support it and reaching out to me, I just don't know that I want to do that with the pod. I want to keep the pod fun. I want to do it whenever it's fun and convenient for me and makes sense, and when there's stuff to talk about. And so I don't feel like I should I don't know, plug in shitty ads or 30-second spots here and there. Maybe someday, but at this point, I just don't think I'm going to do it. With that being said, for those of you who ask me this consistently and who are kind enough to even think that way, I would say if you want to support the pod at this point, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/poppincurbs. And I'm just getting this all set up, so I'm kind of a noob on there, but I believe you can subscribe in some capacity. So if you want to subscribe on Twitch, I think I can get some of that. I set up like a little donation page to where people can donate. I think I even put a little joke in there that every penny I get will go towards candy, gobstoppers, Monster Energy, all that good stuff. So again, twitch.tv/poppincurbs. I try to stream, I don't know, the Mario Golf, Animal Crossing. I'm open to whatever, but catch me on there. Let's talk about Blink. Let's hang out. Let's play games. Just come say what up. So, the other thing I want to mention quickly, I have gracefully bowed out of the Blink-182 Online social media. So I said a couple episodes back, I launched dedicated social media for the podcast. It is at 182 News on Twitter and at 182 News Pod on Instagram. It was just time. A couple years ago, I took over that role for the forums, and I just wanted to do cool shit, anything cool I could for Blink fans. And, I tied in the podcast and I built it up, and I'm super proud of it. I mean, that Instagram account, I think, had 40 followers. Now it has over 8,000. And so for those of you who are wanting to get in touch with me through that, just know that that's not me anymore. I've gracefully bowed out to that. Honestly, it just got to the point where I felt bad promoting the podcast through it, and I just didn't want to feel that way. I want to be able to do whatever I want with the pod, and not feel that I'm using somebody else's platform to kind of do it. And so ultimately I decided that I should launch dedicated podcast channels. So I appreciate everybody who's following the new pod social media stuff. Any future posts out of me that are Blink related are going to come from that. And I appreciate the Blink Online folks for trusting me with those socials for the past couple years. I poured everything I had into those, getting them built up, reaching out, trying to do cool shit for the fan base. And I really appreciate that. I don't think the pod would exist, honestly, if it weren't for me kind of going out of my way to take on that role. When I started doing it, I just wanted to do everything cool I could, and the pod was kind of an offspring of that. So no longer on Blink-182 Online social media, not the man behind it. So if you need to get a hold of me, DM me or whatever, hit me up at Poppin' Curbs or hit me up on the podcast social media. Again, at 182 News on Twitter, at 182 News Pod on Instagram. Okay, that is what I have for the beginning of this episode. And this is yet another one that I am recording live, and I'm going to get the video up on YouTube for those of you who want to watch the live component. I did this on the last one, and I had some good feedback. So let's do it again. Might as well. Today, the episode I want to get into is going to be about the album California and really that era. The 182nd day of the year, July 1st, just happened, which is 182 Day. And that was the 5th anniversary of California, which is just insane. It's crazy to think that that was already 5 years ago. And I really wish I would have thought to do this episode and release it on 182 Day, but I didn't have time. I think I had the interview coming out around that time, so that's okay. Hindsight is 2020, and we got nothing but time on our hands, so let's do it. Today, we're going to dive pretty deep into California, and I feel like I need to really lead the listeners kind of up to the California era. I don't know that everybody knows the backstory on this. I don't know how invested a lot of the fans maybe were leading up to that. I think there's maybe some listeners and some fans whose introduction to Blink was California, which is crazy, but that's rad, and I'm stoked that they're on board and love Blink. But I feel like we need to kind of get led up to what sparked the California, and so I think what I'm going to do is start at the reunion. So we're going to get a little bit of history here, and then I want to talk about California and my thoughts on the era, and especially reflecting back now 5 years later, which is pretty wild. So to kick this off, obviously, I would hope the listeners know Blink was on hiatus. So Blink goes on hiatus essentially 2005 ish up until 2009. Mark does plus 44. Tom starts Angels and Airwaves. And during that time, Angels and Airwaves dropped two albums. Plus 44 had theirs, When Your Heart Stops Beating in 2006. And we thought we were going to get a follow up to that, but we didn't. And I believe it was 2007, 2008 ish. Travis is tragically in a plane accident that leaves everybody on board dead other than him and DJ AM, which is crazy. I remember getting the news flash and I was like, oh my gosh, what the fuck just happened? I hope everybody's okay. He spends months, recovering from that. He thankfully survived. DJ AM survived. They were the only two. Horrific, tragic accident. And so, really, at that point, we didn't know what was going to happen with Plus 44. Blink wasn't even in the equation. Nobody was thinking that would be a thing. Tom was heavy into Angels and Airwaves. And really, what happened is the accident kind of brought them together. And it was kind of a byproduct of that. And to fast forward just a tad, basically, we find out that Blink is going to be on stage together at the Grammys. This is in 2009. We didn't really know what was going to happen. There were rumblings that they were going to announce either a tour or that they were back together. And so for those of you who haven't seen it, you can YouTube it. But if you go back, I'm sure you've seen the picture by now. But Tom, Travis, and Mark walk out on stage. Travis is in a sling and essentially announce something along the lines of, we used to make music together and we're going to again. All of a sudden, Blink fandom is just going nuts. I mean, myself included. We thought Blink was done. I mean, no more. They already had the greatest hits out. I mean, they were in two different bands. Major bad blood, we thought at that point. And so, honestly, I never thought we would see those dudes on stage again. I've talked about this in previous episodes. When I saw Plus 44, my buddy and I, we thought for sure that was the closest we would ever see to Blink on a stage again. So nobody had any idea that would be coming. But they announced it. And so right away, people were like, okay, are they going to get back in the studio? Can Travis even drum at this point? We didn't know. So they announced the reunion tour, which was a huge success. They've got the new bunnies. Everybody's stoked. And then 2010 comes around. We still haven't heard anything really about new music. At this point, Tom is working on Love, it was an album as well as a movie with Angels and Airwaves. Travis was working on his solo stuff, which was kind of the beginnings of Give the Drummer Some. And Mark was busy with his TV show. So they announced it in 2009. We don't get much about new music. We do get some shows, which is great. 2010, don't get much. 2011 rolls around. People are starting to really wonder now, okay, Blink's been back for 2 years at this point. When are we going to get some new shit? On February 5th, they announced that they had 5 songs complete. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh my gosh, they've got new material. Sweet. In March, Travis releases Give the Drummer Some, which is a rad album. A lot of cool collaborations on that. I'm super proud of Travis for putting that together. And, knowing what he's doing now, that was sort of the beginning of him producing and working with beats and really going out and working with artists from different genres and really grinding on that. I love that album. It's a dope vinyl. When I met Travis for the first time, I had him sign that vinyl because I know he's proud of it and it's pretty dope. So give that one a spin if you haven't. In April, they were supposed to go out on tour and it gets postponed. It was a European stretch, I believe. And we're still kind of wondering, okay, where are these songs? What's happening? Finally, it comes out in September of 2011. So we finally get Neighborhoods. We had some leading up. We had Up All Night. We had Hearts All Gone. I saw Blink for the first time in September 2011, which was rad, dream come true. I've talked about this in previous episode. I believe the Blink friend in real life. I go pretty far into depth about he and I seeing Blink for the first time. It was insane. They had a big tour going along with that. And Tom also released Love 2 at that time. So, Blink was back. Neighborhoods era is pretty much kicked off. It's pretty rad. 2012 comes around. Pretty quiet year. They did a couple shows overseas during the summer. The big thing coming out that year is they split from their label Interscope, and for the first time they were independent. And I remember Tom and Mark kind of coming out and saying, like, finally Blink can do, whatever they want to do, release everything however they want. And it seemed like a huge win for Blink, which was dope. So again, we're wondering, okay, what's going to come next at this point? What ends up coming out next is Dogs Eating Dogs. So that is the EP we get. It was kind of bundled with some Christmas stuff. It came with like a Christmas poster if you ordered it. And it was a nice little EP. They were evolving. You've got kind of the Angel sound on some of the songs, like Disaster. You've got just some clear Mark bangers like Dogs Eating Dogs. And everybody felt that was a pretty good representation of where Blink was at that time. Christopher Holmes, previous episode, talked about that at length. He engineered that, co-produced that. Go back and listen to that one if you want to get more into the Neighborhoods era as well as Dogs Eating Dogs, for sure. Still, right after that, people were wondering what's going to happen. 2013 rolls around. They had a few shows in Australia, and that is one where Travis was planning on making it to those shows. So after his accident, Travis does not fly. In fact, he just tweeted a couple weeks ago that he may fly again, which I'm super proud of him for. And, if he feels the time is right, by all means, I hope he goes through with it. At that time, I remember Travis even saying that I believe he was going to be put to sleep just to be put on a plane and make it over there. And as it crept up, he didn't make it. And so I remember him putting out a statement basically saying, like, look, I can't do it yet, which by all means, that is his right. And nobody can say a damn thing about it. If he doesn't want to do that, I wouldn't either. And so they played some shows in Australia, and Brooks Wackerman filled in. You can find some of those on YouTube. That's really some of the only shows that you can get Dogs Eating Dogs songs live. So go back and check some of those. They did a great acoustic rendition of Wasting Time during those, which was great to see after all those years. Outside of those, nothing was happening as far as album stuff goes, as far as recording goes. And at the end of that year, this is 2013, they announced the 10-year anniversary shows of the Untitled album. I was at those shows. And one thing I specifically remember about those shows, this was back-to-back nights at the Palladium in LA. I flew out there for 2 days, told the whole story in a previous pod. And one thing I vividly remembered that I mentioned in that episode is Mark seemed a little frustrated at soundcheck, to be honest. And it was the first time that I had been really up close behind the scenes with them. And one of the takeaways that my buddy and I had pretty quickly were they didn't seem too happy. And I don't know, what was going on behind the scenes. I remember vividly at one point, people were yelling out songs and Mark was like, no, we really need to practice. And it was almost a type of vibe of like, they hadn't been talking or they hadn't been in the same room or they definitely hadn't had a chance to practice for the shows leading up to it, stuff like that. And I remember at one point, Tom mentioned creating a new fan club called the Rabbit Hole. He mentioned they were going to make an album the next year. And I remember Mark looking right at him and saying, oh, really? We are? And it was like the first time Mark had heard that. And so I remember Tom saying that. He even said something along the lines of he would let people vote for the album cover, which I thought was interesting. And obviously in hindsight, I know that nothing happened that next year. So they do the Untitled shows, which were rad, by the way. Best Blink shows I've been to date. And in 2014, it rolls around. And there was a quote somewhere, it was Travis in March of 2014. People are asking, where's this new music? When are you guys getting into the studio? Are you guys working on anything? And Travis comes out and says, Blink needs to get their shit together, which just cracks me up. But clearly, we know that they were not working on much. And it didn't seem like there were concrete plans that everybody could agree on to work on stuff. A couple more months go by. We haven't heard anything. All of a sudden in April, Mark announces the Nothing and Nobody side project with him and Christopher Holmes. I asked Christopher Holmes about that during that interview, and he said it was a bit of an electronic side project that was basically in between Blink stuff. Blink wasn't doing much. They got along great when they were working on Plus 44 stuff, and they worked together, obviously, on Neighborhoods and Dogs Eating Dogs. And it was just stuff they were working on. I would love to hear those. As Chris said in my interview with him, we probably won't. They're sitting on a hard drive somewhere. But that's what Mark started working on. So that tells you right there, Blink wasn't very active at the time. And, there's one thing that I will definitely say about as busy as Travis is, and especially these days, he's insanely busy. He will always make Blink the priority. I mean, he'll drop everything. And I mean, Travis can hop in and knock his shit out pretty quick anyway, but he will always put Blink at the top. Mark, dude loves Blink. He rocks Blink t-shirts. He rocks his own band. That's all he ever wanted to do is Blink. So you already know he's down. Now, Tom, in hindsight, we know, was really busy getting his To the Stars stuff going at the time, and he was working on the Dreamwalker. So I think it is just, this is one of those times, and this is the year where Tom's got a lot of stuff going on. Angels is working on an album. He's launching a new company that has all these multimedia projects. And so clearly what happens is they just can't come up with time to get together. So in April, Mark announces Nothing and Nobody. Several months go by, don't hear much. In August, they play Reading and Leeds overseas. Big shows, great shows on YouTube if you can ever pull those up, which they're on YouTube, I believe. And the last show we get with Tom is October 11th in Las Vegas, which nobody knew at the time. That would be Tom's last show with Blink-182. So what happens the rest of that year is Tom launches the Dreamwalker with Alon Rubin. It's an Angels and Airwaves album. However, this one is essentially just Alon and Tom, whereas, previous iterations, actually Adam was in on, Love 2, Matt Wachter. And so Angels had taken a bit of a break, and they were coming back with this Dreamwalker. Along with that, he was launching comic books. There was short animation, a kind of a graphic novel companion piece to it. So Tom was launching all this stuff. He was launching To the Stars. That's when I first, heard of To the Stars, got interested in them, started supporting them, coming out with rad shit. So Tom had a lot going on, He likes to stay busy. When he gets something in his head, he does it. It may take a little bit, but when he gets dead set on something, we know this. He's all in and he gets excited, and that's all he wants to mess with until he sees it through. So the end of 2014 rolls around, and the interesting thing is on December 24th, somebody had reported, I can't remember where it was seen or came out with, but it came out that they had signed a record deal. Which was interesting because, really it's all fun and games being independent and trying to, release stuff on your own and get together. But, signing an actual record deal where there's potentially deadlines and people to answer to in some capacity, that kind of gets the ball rolling a little bit. Now, the interesting thing here is on December 30th, 2014, Mark has said that they received an email from Tom saying he has no interest in recording and he wants to do other non-musical stuff. He's out indefinitely. Okay. So this is like 2 years, 2013, 2014, that they're trying to do Blink stuff. It's not lining up. It's not happening. According to Mark, at the end of the year, Tom told them that he doesn't have any time to record, basically, at this point. And I believe Tom. I don't think he did. And, I have said that if people are not passionate about something, you don't want to force them to do that. And Tom, from his, artistic side of things, he's only going to do stuff he's interested in. And, as much as we selfishly want him to give everything to Blink and, just be a part of Blink. And I've joked around, and it's always fun to me. I'm like, I just wish he could give every Thursday from 4 to 6:30 to Blink. But the reality is, I don't know that Tom's heart was in it, and that's not the best way to put it. It's just I don't think that's what he woke up itching to do every day. Maybe like Mark and Travis do. And for someone like Tom, who has already been on top of the world and he knows what that's like and he accomplished that, and really he had been pretty far removed from that. They were done with this in 2004, 2005. And, Tom has said he doesn't like touring and, committing to these 3-year cycles. But then when he gets out on tour in front of 15, 20,000 people, it's a blast. But I mean, tour is a grind. And, when you're removed from that and maybe you don't, feel like that should be your top priority. It's kind of like a been there, done that. What are we going to do with this? He's launching literally his own company. He's got employees. He has people he's responsible for. I get it. You guys know this. I'm fair to all the dudes. I'm positive to all the dudes. I rock with them on every level, every decision. So I totally get it. I totally understand it. And I guess at this point, it was nice probably for them to at least get an answer that, okay, Tom's out for now, or he's out indefinitely. They've heard that before. This has happened before. So we're going to see what happens. Now, 2015 rolls around. And again, I'm just trying to get everybody caught up to eventually get into this California era, because I think this context is really important leading up to it, to be honest. We get into 2015. January 5th, allegedly, is the deal that was signed for them to get into the studio. That date goes by. Obviously, they've got the email from Tom that it's not happening. It doesn't happen. Now, the interesting thing here is on January 26th, Travis's Tattoo and Music Festival, which is called Muse Inc., that he held every year in Orange County, rad festival, would love to get there. And they released their lineup. Now, this is Travis's show, mind you, okay? He puts this on. It's tons of, he brings in like the illest tattoo artists, tons of rad artists, musical acts, tons of sick cars. It just seems like a really dope thing to go to. Muse Inc. announces their lineup on January 26th, and there was a very, very interesting thing on that. And what it is for the very first time, we see Blink-182 is announced. However, it's not just Blink-182. There's some words after it. It says Blink-182 with Matt Skiba. And right away, and it launched a whole line of posters and t-shirts and everything. A lot of people are going, who the fuck is Matt Skiba? You've probably seen him. They knew this. They poked fun at this. There was a famous Stars and Straps shirt that says, who the fuck is Matt Skiba, with the famous F, which is hilarious. And to me, right away, I knew who Matt Skiba was from Alkaline Trio. I listened to Alkaline Trio some. I was aware of them. I certainly wasn't like a stan or fanboy or knew all their discography. But I was like, whoa, hang on. What's happening here? They're getting a fill-in for Tom for this show. It reminded me of like when I see Sublime with Rome. It's like, okay, what's happening here? So the fan base, right away, it was an interesting time because people were pretty split. They're like, okay, how are you going to have Blink without Tom? Well, the problem is, this is Travis's show, and Blink's a headliner. And it's kind of embarrassing if your own band can't play your festival. And so what happened is um, Travis and Mark famously invite Matt Skiba, who they have known for years, from tons of tours and Warped Tour and all that good stuff. Obviously, they knew that. In fact, like a year prior, there's a famous picture that always pops up of Tom with Matt Skiba. Back in the day, Tom is even quoted as saying how much Alkaline Trio was an influence on him, and at one point it made him rethink a bunch of his lyrics because Alkaline Trio was so brilliant. So they've known Matt forever, and they get news that Tom is out. They already have committed to playing Music in March. And so they get together, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in both of these conversations because obviously Travis and Mark had to have a conversation about, okay, what are we going to do? Is Blink done again? Do we somehow continue this? Well, ultimately, they decided that they would ask Matt Skiba to fill in. And in later interviews and such, they are quoted as basically saying like he was their only choice. They talked about it. There was nobody else. It was Skiba. He's the man. And I don't know that they had a plan B. So it would have been interesting if Matt said, sorry, dudes, can't do it. um, they famously invite Matt to Travis's vegan restaurant, Crossroads, which I just went to when I was in California, which was rad. And they sit him down. And I guess at the time, they just asked him if he could play a couple shows with them. Now, when I was at Crossroads, I was finding it just so eerie that such a monumental point in Blink's history went down probably pretty close to where I was eating vegan waffles and chicken tenders, chicken and waffles. And Matt says yes. So for the first time, we have a different guitarist in Blink. We have a different lead singer right away. They got to get some rehearsing in. Matt, if you didn't know Alkaline Trio or Matt Skiba before, that dude's discography is insane. He has so many songs. That dude knows so many songs. He's written so many brilliant songs. And right away, he needed to learn about 20 Blink songs. Now, I'll tell you from firsthand experience, yeah, some Blink songs can be a little easy on guitar. Some of them are kind of gnarly. I've talked about that. Some of these are pretty fast paced, some funky picking patterns. And to be honest, Tom has a pretty unique style, and it's a lot different than the way Skiba typically plays. Skiba and Alkaline Trio, they're pretty kind of power chord heavy, and a lot of Skiba's riffs and licks are coming from power chords, whereas Tom's, a lot of them are coming from hammer-ons and funky picking and stuff like that. So right away, Skiba says he went home and turned on Enema of the State and just started playing it front to back and trying to learn it. And so I'm sure Mark and Travis got him a set list, and ultimately they were going to play some shows with Skiba leading up to this as warm-ups, and he was going to fill in with them at Music, which is pretty crazy. Now, at one point, shortly after this, Rolling Stone releases kind of a famous tell-all article from Mark and Travis. You guys can look that one up if you want. On January 27th, Tom posts a pretty long letter to the fans, basically saying, look, we've always been dysfunctional. We're like brothers, like Christ. This is how we've always been. And basically just says he was having a hard time committing. He's trying to put all this stuff together. He says at one point, part of this record deal agreement that they wanted him to sign essentially said that he couldn't release anything else. He says he literally just finished recording an Angels album. You're not going to be able to tell him he can't release this for, a 2-year album cycle. Who knows? We haven't seen those contracts. We weren't in those rooms. Typically, bands do have some sort of clause in there for releasing side project stuff within, a 6-month time frame or something like that. If a label backs you, they don't want you, instantly releasing your side project or something like that. So it's plausible. I mean, it could be in there. Who knows? I'll take Tom's word for that. But ultimately, I think it just came down to he had a lot of stuff going on, and Blink wasn't going to be the priority. And I think what happened is Mark and Travis got kind of tired of waiting, and they wanted Blink to be the priority, which um, seems to, cause issues and has throughout the years. Now, what's interesting is on February 1st, Tom starts posting snippets of songs. And we're like, hang on, what's going on here? I thought you didn't have any new Blink material, or we didn't think you were working on anything. And he starts posting snippets of some stuff. He was using hashtag songs without a home, which is kind of funny. And at the end of February, he announces the demos, odds, and ends that he ended up releasing. And the lead single was a song called New World that dropped in March. And so it was really kind of a weird time, to be honest, because we have them saying they don't have time for music, or Blink's not going to happen. And then Mark and Travis are like, well, whatever, we're going to at least do these shows with Matt Skiba. And people were, on the fence on which side you are on here. It was kind of dramatic in the Blink fan base. Then right away, we have Tom kind of going on some long, almost rant type things in his comments and on Facebook. And right away starts releasing songs. And then it's like, oh crap, he's got a new album. And some of these, if you go back and listen to those, which you totally should, I think you can even still get the physical CD on To the Stars. The vinyl's kind of rare. Some of these are clear Blink ideas, and he has said that. And so if you listen to New World and you listen to Circle Jerk and some of the songs on that album, you can totally see how those could end up being Blink songs, or maybe were the beginnings of those. And, that's what Tom was working on at the time. So Tom kind of rushes out these demos that he had laying around, which was cool. Any new music from any of these dudes, a lot of people are stoked with. And to see some of these ideas that he was working on was pretty rad. And then in March, we start getting word that Blink is going to do some warm-up shows. So they announce a warm-up show at the Roxy, which was Matt's first show in the band. And I remember just seeing clips, and I was like, dude, he's crushing it. He had like the backwards hat on. I mean, he looked like he fit right in. And, for all the songs that he was learning and playing, he did great. And what's crazy is I've heard Skiba talk about leading up to that show. He said he was so nervous that he was physically ill backstage. And, just knowing how sweet Matt Skiba is and how nice that dude is, especially with, unfortunately, what a lot of Blink fans hit him with after, this era and stuff. The thought of that dude sitting backstage getting ready to go out and play a show that he knows a lot of people, are on both sides on. A lot of people were stoked. A lot of people were already giving him shit. And to think of him just sitting backstage, vomiting before going out and playing this show. I mean, what a moment. That's pretty wild. So they go out and play the Roxy show. They did another warm-up show at Soma, which would have been rad as far as, San Diego music scene history, Blink history. I mean, what a killer small show to be at. There are clips of these on YouTube, pretty much every song. If you want to go check these out and you haven't seen those, it's pretty dope. And then on March 22nd at Trav's Festival, they perform at Musing. When I had Davy Jones on, he was at that show. In fact, that was his first Blink show he had seen in like 20 years. And his takeaway was, holy shit, like Matt did good. He did great. I mean, what more can you ask? I mean, yeah, he's not Tom. It's not very fair for people to compare him to Tom, but he was happy. He sang on key. He seemed to nail really all the guitar parts. I mean, there wasn't any major fuck ups, or, they didn't have to stop any songs or anything. So it was pretty rad, to be honest. Now, at that time, we thought that was it. And I even remember a couple months after that, he was on Mark's podcast, the Hi, My Name is Mark podcast. They kind of talked about those shows or leading up to those shows. And really at the time, Matt was even really on a break with Alkaline Trio. He was doing a Matt Skiba and the Secrets album, which there are two of those. Check those out if you haven't heard those. Pretty cool. And the newest one of his was getting ready to come out. And it came out. It came out in, I believe, June. It was June 2nd. He came out with Cuts. It's Kuts. Really rad front cover. It's blue Skiba's on the front. And so Skiba was really just kind of doing his solo stuff with his band, The Secrets. And there's two songs on there I like, by the way, "Lonely and Cold" and "Crazy." Check those out if you're gonna listen to that album for sure. And so really, we still didn't know what was going to happen. Um, is our Blink done? Is Matt Skiba as a permanent member an option? Is Tom not busy anymore? What's going on here? We just basically had 3 shows with Skiba, and then a couple months go by, and we don't know what's going on. On July 21st, we get the answer to that. And what happened is Billboard, of all people, announced in an article that Blink is going into the studio with Matt Skiba, which is a big, big ordeal. This is a huge announcement, okay? And so, really, what I have done up until this point in the pod is given you the quick rundown of what has led up to this California era getting ready to kick off. So I felt it was extremely necessary to give you the background, to give you the history, the quick rundown of this on what, even if you weren't there or didn't know all of this stuff, this is what the fan base was going through at that time. So we hear the word July 21st. Blink is going to get into the studio with Matt. Right away, people are like, "Holy shit!" There's both sides. It's polarizing, and again, I get it. I understand this. I understand people who say, "How the fuck can you continue Blink without Tom?" And then I understand the people like myself are like, "Well, if Tom doesn't want to do Blink, it's Mark and Travis's right. As 2/3 of the band, if they want to continue and can find a way to do it, then by all means, do it." And it's something that, as I've started to get into the history of a lot of bands, I just watched a great documentary on the Descendants, and by the way, it's called Filmage on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, type in Filmage, and it's the history of the Descendants / all. And what I have found with a lot of bands, the Descendants, especially like Bad Religion, is there's a lot of band members who can be in and out, and they go through different singers and all that stuff. And so, the fact that this could happen to Blink, yeah, maybe it's shocking because they're a trio and they're all super recognizable with Mark, Tom, and Travis, almost equal in every respect. But it's not terribly surprising for a band to potentially have a new era or a new guitarist or a new singer. And so to me, my thought at the time was, let's go. Let's fucking go. I'm all for these dudes all being happy and doing what they want. And if they want to continue Blink and this is what they're committed to, then let's go. Let's see what they can do. Right when this was announced, I was going back and listening to all of the Alkaline Trio discography, front to back, all of Skiba's work. And at the time, I was like, man, this dude's amazing. Like, from a lyrical perspective, he's got the look, he's got the respect in the scene, he's an incredible songwriter. And so my thought was, let's put these dudes in a room and see what we can do. Because, Travis Barker, Mark Hoppus, and Matt Skiba are going to make some good shit. And so I thought it was best at the time to, for one, definitely give it a shot. You hope you're going to like the new material. There's not one Blink song leading up to this, nor Plus 44, nor Angel song that I dislike. So obviously I'm going to give it a fair chance, and I'm sure it's going to be dope. So September 2nd rolls around and they enter the studio. So this is September 2nd, 2015. And for the first time, we have Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, and Matt Skiba writing music. This is crazy. At the time, they posted some pictures. Tim Armstrong was in the house with them. We didn't know if he was producing or just hanging. I believe they were working with James Ingram, who was in the room with them. He had worked with Mark on the podcast and Plus 44. And they just began writing together. And so we didn't really get any clips. There were some pictures. It looked like the dudes were having a good time. but kind of quiet for a couple months. The interesting turn here is 2016 comes around, and in January, all of a sudden, they're posting pictures in the studio with John Feldmann. Most people, especially from kind of the punk rock scene, know John Feldmann as frontman, lead singer of the band Goldfinger. Honestly, I didn't know. I knew Goldfinger. I didn't really know much about John's producing, anything like that. But right away, starting off in January, they are in the studio with Feldman, and they are just looking happy as fuck. They're posting pictures almost every day. And I was just so damn happy to see an active Blink 182, to see Mark smiling, to see Travis smiling, to be getting updates. They were even posting little clips. And I was just like, holy shit, what a cool new era of Blink. I'm stoked. I can't wait. And it was just kind of refreshing to have something, positive to look forward to and fun. And it looked like everybody was having a good time. The story goes, they get into the studio with John, and on the very first day, they write Bored to Death. Now, to back up a tad, because this gets a little bit controversial in the fan base. So they were, allegedly writing basically from September of 2015 through the end of the year. And it was just them, and we thought Tim Armstrong was maybe producing in some capacity. So they were writing at this time, and a lot of people would love and pay a stupid amount of money to hear what they were coming up with at that time. And I think a lot of folks, myself included, were thinking that maybe this would be just the perfect Alkaline Trio / Plus 44 mashup, and maybe we'd just get some really gnarly dark shit. And what can go wrong with this with these dudes? Now, what I think happened, and by their accounts sort of did, is they were writing and they had some good songs, they had some stuff they liked, but they just weren't getting these pop punk masterpieces or just the hit. They just weren't quite getting it. Now you got to think, they haven't written with Skiba. Skiba has never written with them. Who knows how that dynamic is? A lot of artists, go about things in a different way. Who knows? Per Feldman, he was on some interview, talked about this at length. He was asked by Travis to kind of take a listen to some of the stuff. So Travis had known Feldman going way back from even, I think, like the Aquabats, because the Aquabats as well as Goldfinger kind of had a ska element to it, and they were part of the same scene. So they had known each other forever. John Feldman, had established himself by that point as a badass producer, mega producer. And so Travis hits up Feldman and asks if he'll listen to the stuff. Feldman takes a listen to it, and he said that, it sounded like a little bit like Alkaline Trio. Maybe you got some Plus 44, but it just wasn't super cohesive, and it just wasn't what, they were going for. So John invites them to come to his studio. He said, you know what? Why don't you guys just come to the studio tomorrow and let's work on a song? So, story goes, they get into the studio with John, and on the very first day, they write Bored to Death. So imagine you walk into a studio and you guys sit down and working with John, who's like super hyper, super positive, really pushing these dudes. You bust out Bored to Death, which, I mean, really, not to do a spoiler alert or anything, but is probably the best song from, well, definitely the album, I think. That's the song that they're still playing live off that album. So, the story goes, they were so stoked with what they came up with and how it was working with John that they came back for another day. Like, wow, that was great. Let's work on another album, another song. They go in, start working on another song, working on another song, working on another song. They just start cranking these out. And John even said that he had to cancel appointments with some of the other artists he had booked, which, if I'm some young artist getting ready to come in with for a 2-day session with Feldy, and he calls me up and he's like, hey, sorry, Blink 182 has a studio booked for a couple weeks. We're going to have to push you off. I would say, by all means, please take it. They can have it. So the story goes, um, all of those songs that they were working on were scrapped, other than Hey, I'm Sorry. John said in an interview, I think it was on Mark's podcast, that there were just pieces of, it was just called Sorry at the time, but Hey, I'm Sorry, that ended up kind of basically moving on and being worked on with John Feldman. And Feldman said that he just didn't want to put his hand on, that art. They wanted to create stuff from scratch and start in basically new creative space and start working on stuff in his studio. So they go in there, they crank out Bored to Death. They're positive. They're in all the time. I mean, we are getting a ton of photos and smiles and updates. And I'm telling you, this is something that you don't get often in Blinkland. I don't know that we've seen this since like 2003 when they were in the house. um, in February, they come out saying they had 26 songs. Okay. That's crazy. Everybody's like, oh my God, they have done more in a month and a half than they did in the previous 10 years. What is happening here? So, everybody is just super eager to hear what is this new Blink going to sound like with Matt Skiba of Alkaline Trio. On April 27th, we get to find out. Now, the official release date was supposed to be April 28th, and I vividly remember it accidentally got uploaded on YouTube, and whoever uploaded it, which it said was a dude named Ben, accidentally posted it public instead of hiding it private until the next day. And so I remember right away, people were like, the new song's out. And we're like, what? It's out? It's out? And lo and behold, it was out. Shout out Ben for accidentally leaking that. And so, all of a sudden, we get the first song with Blink-182 without Tom. This is with Matt Skiba. This is the new era. It's a song called Bored to Death. Right away, I remember hearing the guitar. I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Blink. They came in, banger, loved it. It's so funny because at the time, I remember, and myself included, a lot of people couldn't tell the difference between Matt and Mark. We're like, I couldn't tell which person was singing which verse. And in hindsight, and obviously now, it's like, well, duh, that's them. But it's just a weird thing. You get the first song where it's going back and forth in a Blink song, and you're used to kind of Tom's nasally or his accent, and you don't have that, and you have Skiba, and it just struck me as a little odd because everybody thought it was Mark, but obviously it wasn't. Now, they rushed that night, and they ended up playing it on K-Rock that night because it leaked. At that time, we thought maybe we were just getting the song. What ends up happening the next day is we get the tour announcement and we get pre-orders for the album. We get to see the artwork. The artwork was teased a little bit leading up to it. And at the time, I remember thinking that the little guy driving looked bored to death. So a lot of people thought that would be the artwork for the single. But they announce the new album, the new tour. People are fucking stoked. Oh my gosh, we're going to be able to see Blink. It was a massive summer tour. The artwork was rad. We had a release date for the album. It was sooner than we thought. I mean, this was exciting, exciting times in Blinkland. Leading up to the album, I remember we got No Future, which was rad. I still like that song. And we got Built This Pool. And then I think we also got Rabbit Hole, and I want to say San Diego before it officially dropped on July 1st. So July 1st, 2016, the release date of California, the album comes out. Blink played on Good Morning America that morning. It was rad. This is our favorite band. I mean, this is my favorite band. And to see these dudes happy, new album, new era, they're getting along. It was shaping up to be a rad fucking summer. The album comes out, and I will never forget putting that album on and hearing Cynical for the first time and just being like, oh my God, let's heckin' go. Blink is back. And I'm going to get into, the songs one by one here in a second. But the big key here is um, the Matt Skiba era was here. And I think the best way to look at it is a new era of Blink was here. Again, I totally get it. I understand people who say, no Tom, no Blink. I can understand your viewpoint, but here's mine. It's just, be respectful. Um, One major bummer about this era, and every time these songs dropped, um, the fan base was pretty harsh, to be honest. The Tom fans, I mean, I understand the frustration, and with anything, it was almost like polarizing. Like, are you team Tom or are you team Mark and Travis? Um, I think, even if you don't like the new music, and maybe you don't think that they should have continued without Tom, I think we're at a point where you should be like, you know what? There's plenty of old material. Be thankful for the old stuff. If Tom wants to do his thing, by all means, you can still support Tom and his thing. But be respectful for the dudes. It just makes me cringe so hard when there's people just shitting in Mark's comments, or Blink would post a new song on the Instagram and the comments were just people absolutely ripping it left and right. And it's like, okay, guys, if this isn't your thing, it's okay. But these dudes are just doing what they love. Like, why the fuck would you rip on somebody who just wants to do what they love? They worked extremely hard on this. They put out what they thought people would totally dig. If you don't like it, move on. I mean, that's just something that I understand. Being diehards, it can be kind of tough to just kind of turn the other way. But I think the best way to look at it is it's just a new era. And, for folks like me who love it, obviously it's easier for us to take in. But if you don't dig it, I mean, it's all good. Just be respectful, be happy and stoked that Mark and Travis were able to continue doing what they love. That's the thing to me. Like, especially seeing Mark the past couple years, I'm at the point where he and I are friends, which is fucking crazy. But, he loves Blink. I mean, he absolutely loves Blink 182. I mean, like I said, the dude wears his own band shirts. He'll play a Blink show in a Blink shirt. I mean, how rad is that? Mark is out there constantly talking to Blink fans, doing rad stuff on his streams. He follows Blink fan accounts and is always trying to do rad stuff for the fan base. Like, the dude just loves Blink 182, and he's honestly just the sweetest guy, the nicest soul. And it honestly just breaks my fucking heart for people to try and rip him, or Travis, for really just wanting to continue to have fun and play music that they worked so fucking hard to do and make and grind and get to the point that they got, that they have every right to continue to do that. Even worse than that are the people who shit on Matt Skiba. I owe Matt Skiba nothing but a million thank yous for stepping in and graciously putting all of his other projects on hold, his life on hold, to save my favorite band. You know, he could have said no. He could have said pass, hard pass, no thanks. He stepped in. He knew he was stepping into shoes that were basically impossible to fill. And he's done it with a smile. He's done it graciously. I know people try to rip on him for, fucking up a guitar part, or they don't like it when he sings this way, or it doesn't sound like Tom. He's not Tom. He's not. And it's not fair for anybody to compare him to Tom. Tom is one of a kind. His guitar playing is incredibly unique. He's a motherfucking funny dude. The folks that I have interviewed who know Tom, who grew up with Tom, when I ask them about them, they say Tom is Tom. And that is the only way you can explain him. He cannot be replaced. And that's not the point. It's not that he's a fill-in or whatever. Skiba is stepping in, kicking off a new era of Blink. and especially with the three albums we have got out of them at this point. I mean, even if you went to a show and had a blast since 2016, you should thank Matt Skiba. Even if you like one song from the new era, you should thank Matt Skiba. Now, if you don't like any of the songs and you're sitting at home and refuse to go to the shows, well, then that's your own fault. I can't help you there. It's a bummer that you're that bitter about it when those dudes are just trying to have fun, play music that means a lot to them, and make new music. That part I don't understand, but I want to go on the record, and I've told Matt this. Thank you for helping save my favorite band. I cannot thank any of those dudes enough for the rad times I have had since 2016. Countless fun trips, countless rad concerts, meet and greets. I got to meet the dudes. If it weren't for Matt Skiba filling in and them continuing Blink and kicking off this new era, I mean, there are so many of you I wouldn't know. There's so much that I have done with my life as far as like learning how to podcast, learning, really getting into like the social media stuff, the graphic design stuff. I mean, I've got tattoos that wouldn't have happened. So, I mean, I cannot thank those dudes enough for deciding to continue Blink 182. And I know that that had to be probably a difficult conversation that Mark and Travis had. And I'm telling you, that takes some balls to sit down and say, look, we're going to do it. We're not going through this again. We'll get somebody else. And so, props to all those dudes. And of course, you already know, I'm always down with whatever Tom's up to and To the Stars and, the new stuff. It's exciting times in Angels and Airwaves land. And at this time, everything's cordial and it's all good. But it was an interesting time period, to be honest. It really was. So they go out on their tour. It's successful. They bring back the flaming fuck sign. It's rad. I was stoked. We were all so stoked to be able to go see live shows with Blink. It had been years. For me, it had been, 2013 had been 3 years since I had seen Blink. A lot of people hadn't had the opportunity to see them in a city near them since 2011 at that point. So, really rad to see them back on the road having fun. They sounded great. They went out with A Day to Remember, All American Rejects, and DJ Spider, I believe, which was cool. The album comes out, ends up getting nominated for a Grammy, which I know they were super proud of. I know some people may say, well, who gives a fuck about the Grammys? Well, in that field, that is still a prestigious award and certainly an honor to be mentioned. So I was so stoked for the dudes in that regard. But it was just cool. The album was out. I loved it. I met and talked with so many Blink fans, either on Reddit or the forums, and it was just a rad time. Really leading up to it, it was an exciting time to be a Blink fan. That kind of gets us up to where we need to be as far as like the history of the California era goes, along with, that was some of my thoughts looking back 5 years later. The what I want to get into next is just maybe some quick thoughts on the actual songs looking back. I mean, I still give California a spin, usually probably once a month for sure. We ended up getting California Deluxe, which, gosh, it's so tough to really pick between the two because, there's a lot of songs I like on Deluxe. It's probably a little bit darker. I think Skiba shines a little bit more on it. But I love them both, to be honest. So let's get into California. The album comes out. It starts off with Cynical. Cynical, one of the early clips we got with John Feldman out of the studio was Matt Skiba. I can still picture it. He's kind of got a long hair parted and he's holding his headphones and he's just screaming, "What's the point of saying sorry now?" And when that song kicks in, I mean, holy shit. Mark comes in saying there's a cynical feeling saying I should give up. You said everything you've ever said. You said everything you'll ever say. And to me, knowing what Mark has said in the past about his writing and about, Mark genuinely doesn't think he will ever write another good song, which is crazy because he's been thinking that for like 15 years, and think of how many good songs he's written. But for him to come in and open the album like that, he's telling you right there, there's a cynical feeling saying I should give up. And it breaks my heart that that went through his head, but it probably did at one point. Tom doesn't have time for Blink. What do I do here? Do I give up? Or am I just going to give up here? And then when that song just kicks in, you can hear Travis, fuck. And Travis just kicks in with those drums and the way Skiba comes in with, what's the point of saying sorry now? I mean, that is just a great opener. And as soon as I heard that, I mean, I knew we were in good shape on this album for sure. We end up getting number two is Bored to Death, which we had been banging for months at that point. I mean, that song just rips. To me, that is just quintessential new era Blink. It sounds like Blink. Uh, Chorus is amazing. Rad bridge. That song, I'm still not sick of that song. That's one that, kind of like What's My Age Again, Rock Show. I kind of liken it to those off those albums where I don't think I'll ever get sick of it. She's Out of Her Mind. That one kind of has that gnarly little bass intro going on, and that was kind of a fun summer song, to be honest. It's just a real good, fun summer song. It just sounds like that summer Blink 182 hit, to be honest. When we get to Los Angeles, that is one that really surprised me when I was listening to it for the first time. And that's where I was like, oh, wow, this is a little bit experimental. I don't know that they write that song if Tom's in the band. And so for me, that was pretty cool to see them going out, experimenting with some different tones and sounds and all that good stuff. So, I love that song, still listen to it to this day. And I even really enjoyed that when they played it live on tour. Sober. This one is just really catchy. This is just like, I'm shocked they didn't pick this as a single. A lot of people really think they should have picked this as a radio hit. The story on this one is that Patrick Stump of Fall Out Boy, I believe, came up at least with some part of the dandelion four-leaf clover comparison, which ended up being turned into like this full-blown chorus. Just incredibly catchy. This is kind of one of the slower ones. This is one that I could totally hear being played on like the radio, alt radio, stuff like that. But I mean, if you play that to somebody, it's going to be stuck in their head. Enjoy that one. I wouldn't say it was at the top of my list on California, but it's definitely a feel good, catchy banger. Built This Pool, that was a joke song that we got early. I want to see some naked dudes. That's why I built this pool. Mark had actually had that in the bag. He had played that before on his TV show with an acoustic guitar. I can still picture it. So it was funny that he put that one on there. And it was cool to see the joke songs back. This really was almost like a rebirth of Blink 182. And so you got the fun summer album. You got, they've almost got the Enema pop punk vibes going, the summer vibes going. And so it was really cool to get the joke songs back in there for kids who, are picking this up for the first time or who are just, haven't heard Blink in a while. With both of those joke songs in there, it just really lets you know that, look, this is still the fun band you love who can still joke around and have a good time. We get No Future. Love the bridge on No Future. Still love that song to this day. This is a song, the next one, Home is Such a Lonely Place. This is one that really caught me off guard when I was listening to the album for the first time. And I just didn't see this one coming. It's a beautiful acoustic song. And the story goes, they were at the studio one day and they were sitting there talking about how basically, their kids are getting older and how lonely they're going to be when all of a sudden one day they're gone. And out came the idea that home is such a lonely place. Yeah, it's home, but how's it going to be when it's just you? And, this was even before I even had a kid. And I remember listening to that song and I was mowing the grass. And I'll never forget, I'm mowing the grass and I'm crying. And I remember looking around like, oh my God, I hope my neighbors don't see me right now because I am crying real tears listening to this song. And It's just a beautiful song. It's one that honestly, like, if I'm listening to it in public or at the gym or something, I had to skip it because I would get too emotional listening to it. And as a father now, it hits me even harder. They came out with three different music videos for that, which was just so rad. Go watch all three versions of those if you haven't. There's one that basically is Mark's life. There's one that's Travis's life, and there's one that's Matt's life. And it's just a really interesting take on such a beautiful song. Um, this next song, I love this next song, Kings of the Weekend. So that little drum intro, just doom 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 da 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 da, dun 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 dun. I just love that song, and I think it's just such a feel good banger. Fun fact: when you hear the scream in there, there's kind of a subtle scream in the background on one of those. That is Jack Hoppus. That is Mark's son Jack. Supposedly they were in the studio one day, and I think Mark said he FaceTimed Jack, and they told him to scream. That's what he did, and they put it on the album. Just really cool. Pretty rad of them to do that. Teenage Satellites, that is one where I was thinking Skiba was shining. This is one that was a little bit experimental, not one that I think would have been written with Tom in the band. This next song, insanely underrated in my opinion, Left Alone. This is one where when I put this on, I was like, holy crap, this is Matt Skiba in Blink 182. Love it. I remember instantly playing around with it on guitar. They said at the time, that was one of the first songs where basically they said, let's just get out of Matt's way. And Matt just really put his head down and just crushed that. For the longest time, they were thinking this might be the lead single, and I could see why, but I love that song. It does not get enough love, in my opinion, but it's really, really good. Rabbit Hole. Rabbit Hole's interesting because it came out early, and Mark and even Travis were like, oh, this is such, kind of like a take off your pants and jacket style banger. Everyone's going to love it. I think it's one we'll play at shows, for the rest of Blink's career. And what's interesting is the fan base really didn't catch on to this one that much. I was kind of surprised, but it kind of came out. It's a quick little banger. I like it. I won't fall down that fucking rabbit hole. But they never played it live. So it was funny when they were leading up to this and they're like, yo, it's such a great banger. We're going to play it all the time. It just didn't seem to catch on. I like it. It's not one that I typically go out of my way to listen to it, but I think I appreciate it a little bit more in time. San Diego. This is one that a lot of fans, even fans that typically don't like some of the California era stuff, I see a lot of them say that they love San Diego. And, the idea behind this one is John said that he really pushed Mark to write a song that he didn't want to write. And if you listen to the lyrics, can't go back to San Diego. And to me, the way I kind of interpret it is, that's where Blink was coming up. That's where Tom lives. Of all the times that they get hit with, is this song about Tom? And it's not. Every song they write, somebody asks or somebody thinks it's about Tom. This is one that I think is probably about early Blink and Tom, and basically saying I can't go back to San Diego, which is kind of a metaphor at the time where like, look, we've got to move forward. And I like that song. It's not one that I go out of my way to listen to a ton, but the fan base is really high on that one. This next one, another incredibly underrated banger on California, and that is The Only Thing That Matters. To me, this is the closest to an old school Blink, just quick punk banger. I love this song. I love the chorus of it. You're the only thing that matters. You're the only thing that's real. I love Matt's verse on this. He's talking about how he got a painting, his Marilyn Manson painting, stolen by a girlfriend. And I asked him about that. I asked if that was true, and he said it was true, and he got the painting back, which is just hilarious. But I always have loved that song. That's one that incredibly underrated in my opinion. California, the song, beautiful song. It's kind of obviously a super melodic, kind of cheers to the state that they're from. All of them except Skiba. Skiba's a shy guy, but he's been in Cali forever. But it's just, really, I think they could have closed the album with this one. It's almost like a ballad. Um, and really they could have closed it there, I think, if they really wanted to. It's a beautiful song. I really liked Davy Jones talking about that one, where California for a lot of people is just means so much to them, and it was cool that they decided to make an entire song about it. Brahimian Rhapsody, they close with this, and I remember when we got a little sneak preview of this one, and that guitar kicks in at the beginning, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, it's doing the Tom style, hammer-ons and pull-offs and such." And the thing with the fan base at the time was, "Oh my gosh, why would you waste this amazing intro on the joke song? Like, please develop that into 4 minutes of or 3 minutes of an absolute banger." Um, but it's great. It ends the album on a joke, as only Blink 182 can do. And there you have it. There you have California front to back. I think that it is a great album. It is a great pop punk album. I think that is the album they needed to make. And, a lot of folks, still maybe can't comprehend why they didn't come out with this Alkaline Trio plus 44 mashup. Ultimately, this is what the dudes wanted to sound like. This is what always cracks me up about people who try to shit on the mix or the sound or whatever. This stuff sounds exactly like they wanted to. I mean, Travis is the top producer in rock. They know how to make a song, and they know how they want it to sound. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's your opinion. But as Christopher Holmes said, I think this is the album they needed to make. It is incredibly risky and takes a ton of balls to continue Blink, and for them to come out of the gate, with maybe something that's super indie vibes or just doesn't fit the typical Blink bill. It could have been a disaster, to be honest. And so for them to come out with this, to be happy, an insanely successful tour, you know, people love the album. Of course, you're going to have the haters. That doesn't matter what you come out with. Regardless of which album Blink has made, there's always part of the fan base who just is stuck in the past or drops off or whatever. It's par for the course. It happens. But to see them back, Blink was back, active. We know now, they've remained active for 5 years up until the pandemic. I just really think, looking back, I'm incredibly grateful to all of those dudes for everything they've done to keep my favorite band going. Again, from the bottom of my heart, cannot thank Mark, Matt, and Travis enough for the rad times over the last 5 years. I think this is a great album. I've seen a ton of young fans who this is their first Blink album or who got into Blink with this, which is just amazing. It's so wild to me that folks, there's a ton of fans out there who got into Blink around this time who don't even know Blink with Tom, which is crazy to me. But, the more the merrier. It's all good. So, that is kind of what I wanted to do with this episode. I wanted to reflect back, kind of go through the album, get people the background of the album. So this is a happy 5 years to California, to kicking off the new era of Blink-182, which is still happening. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I wanted to get another pod out ASAP. This is on YouTube. If you want to watch it on video, please be sure to like, subscribe. If you're listening on your phone or computer or whatever, please leave me a review if you can. It helps. Rate the pod, share the pod. As always, if you need to get a hold of me, I am at Poppin' Curbs on Twitter and Instagram. Definitely follow the new podcast pages at 182 News, at 182 News Pod. And if you play video games or want to support me somehow, get a hold of me on Twitch, twitch.tv/poppincurbs. Let's play some Mario Golf. Let's play some Mario Kart. And let's have some fun. And if anybody wants to send me Blink beer, or if Phantom Brew wants to sponsor me, get a hold of me. I'm down to drink one Blink beer every Friday. All right, I will talk to you all soon. Hope everybody has a great day. Appreciate your time. Peace out.